I don't know. I hear it's
You talk about Bertha?
And then I didn't really go oh, sorry, not.
Yeah.
And you're not my very first in my life. So give me a
You can have it here, you know.
Close to the water.
Close to the wall.
If he lives on the border, as he says, then we have to put a wall there.
A wall.
A wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like,
There's a wall
It's
between
small.
your place and
very
where the
across
library
the
is.
street from Starbucks.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like in the corner.
And
That
then.
is, yeah, they have.
Curves around.
Yeah, that's another place.
Gabi aber. Okay, es ist spät. Wow.
Close to where I live.
Wow. Now you're becoming a fish, now I really can't talk anymore.
Oh, is this professional?
David, you better watch it, recording you. Okay, let's start learning. And welcome everyone. This week, this will be fun, is Parshat Mishpatim. Parshat Mishpatim, you can find in your Kumashim
460.
on page 416. Parshat Mishpatim is the central parsha which deals with law, mainly civil law. A big part of Parshat Mishpatim is devoted on the subject of how to deal between people, which we call bein Adam lachaveira, between one person and the other. This is mainly what Parshat Mishpatim is. Let's first translate the word Mishpatim, and then discuss some of the subjects which I would like to discuss tonight. First of all, the Torah begins with the words Ve'ele HaMishpatim. Ve. What is Ve? And. Plus. So as Rashi says, Ve'ele Mosif ala Rishonim. The fact that it says Ve plus, this obviously comes to add on that which was written before this set of rules. What was written before this parsha was last week's parsha. Every parsha comes following a parsha preceding it, right? Simple logic. And what happened in last week's parsha? Last week's parsha was about meeting at Sinai, Matan Torah. So now that it says the next parsha begins with the word Ve'ele, what does it come to tell you? That not only what you read last week came from Sinai, but also what you are going to read this week is also from Sinai. Meaning that Mishpatim, even that which seems is going to be logical, sensible commandments, so you should know that this is not a human invention, but rather it's all from Sinai. Matter of fact, I'm sure most of you, or maybe everyone here, studied the book called Pirkei Avot, or you read the book called Ethics of Our Fathers. The word ethics means what? Ethical improvement, character development. What is the first Mishnah of Pirkei Avot? Pirkei Avot is a part of Mishnah. The opening Mishnah to the entire 6 chapters of Pirkei Avot starts with the words Moshe kibel Torah miSinai. Moses received the Torah from Sinai, delivered it to Joshua, Joshua to the elders to the prophets, and the prophet delivered it and handed over to the men of the great assembly. Basically, a crash course in the development of the oral tradition, or tradition in general. Now, if Pirkei Avot would have been Mishnah 1, chapter 1 of the entire set of the Mishnah, then we can all understand why Yehuda Nasi, Yehuda the prince, who was the author of the book of Mishnah, a beginning as an introduction to Mishnah. You should know where it all comes from. But Pirkei Avot is a tractate, a volume of Mishnah, which is very far deep into the set of Talmud or Mishnah. It's not even in the first set, not in the second, not in the third, not in the fourth. Zraim, Moed, Nashim, Nezikin. It's in the fourth set of Mishnah, and as far as tractates and volumes, it's probably in the 40s or in the 30s. And the commentaries are trying to understand why is it that here suddenly he reminded himself to introduce to us how tradition was developed and how it was handed over from whom to whom. One of the commentators, the classic commentators on Mishnah, was a sage with the name of Rabbi Ovadia Bar Tenura. Some of you are familiar with Bar Tenura wine, right? All children like Bar Tenura wine. But Bar Tenura is actually a city. Rabbi Ovadia came from that place, and later he ended actually up in Israel, according at least to some traditions. And he wrote a commentary on the Mishnah. You study his commentary on Mishnah like you study Rashi and Chumash. And he says something very simple but very profound. He says, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wanted all of us to realize that when you come and you study ethics, Jewish ethics is not that which we call in the secular world ethical behavior. Ethical behavior is what sometimes people think or make up is ethical, and this is what we should or not. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi wanted to tell us that in Judaism, even ethics, even personal improvement, character development is a part of Sinai. This is all stemming from a direction of God. Yes, you walk into a Barnes and Noble of blessed memory or any of those books, they don't exist anymore, but also remember, bookstores, right? All of us here, Baruch Hashem, are in the age. If I remember, so you all remember. So there was books, and you walked into the section of ethics, right? Ethical development. 10 ways, 15 ways, 4 steps, 7 steps. Everybody's writing all kinds of ideas how to be the good person that you should be. Other yo, other name, they say in Yiddish. Maybe yes, maybe not. But when it comes to Jews and to those who follow Hashem, Torah know that ethics is also Torah. And this is what this Parsha begins. Ve'ele Mishpatim. You're going to study a lot of interesting things there, but you should know that everything comes from Sinai. What I want to do tonight, God willing, is to share a few examples of so-called logical mitzvot, and to see how Torah manages to make it so illogical, so unlogical, so complicated. And I think that the Torah is trying to emphasize, remember, this is not about what you think is the right thing, but what I am telling you is the right thing. And that's why I put a bunch of Talmudic volumes in front of me. Don't get scared. We're not going to study Talmud all night, even though we should. But just to give some samples, okay? In Hebrew, they call it te'imot. You know what te'imot means? That's the best part of the meal. Right? There is the meal when you sit down, but then there is the sampling before. I have a friend who is in the business of organizing conventions. Large organizations. And he's a Keli, he's not a small Jew. What?
He does the sampling.
Oh, so part of his job, because I convention in November, once I met him it was in May, like Bomer time. And I said, Moshe, what's the plans for this coming year's Shluchim convention? He's also doing that. I don't know exactly, but the sampling it began. He's already sampling with the different caterers to see what's going to be the menu. So he's taking care of the next few months. At the Imot Itchilu says. Anyway, so let's start with the first interesting mitzvah, without going into the details, just into the simple understanding of what it means. So the first discussion in this week's parsha is Ki tikneh eved ivri, which means if you buy a Jewish servant, Torah says you should know, it doesn't matter how much you paid for him, how much you invested, this man can only work for 6 years, and in the 7th, he shall go free for no charge. You got to let him go. What kind of Jew is being sold as a servant? The Talmud tells us, and Rashi brings it, this is a thief, a ganav, a Jewish ganav. This is what Ben Gurion wanted, and they asked him, what do you need a state for? He said, I want to have a Jewish ganav and a Jewish police and a Jewish prison. So there's a Jewish ganav which stole. You come and you tell the jail, I need to get back what was stolen from me. What do they say? You have to file insurance. We don't have it. But I need it back. I want to talk to the guy. I said, no, the guy's in jail. What am I going to gain from the fact that this guy's in jail? It's not going to return my lost, stolen item. And for him, what is jail going to be? If he came into jail as a little ganav, as a miniature ganav, knowing how to climb to a window, just let him spend it a couple years, and he's going to walk out to a Rebbe ganav. He's going to be, a master ganav that he's going to learn all the tricks and all the ideas that till that point he didn't know. He knew how to pick up, a little suitcase somewhere here and there. Those who follow Israeli news, the last few days, there was someone picked up a person in the Bursa, in the Diamond District. A suitcase, apparently they found them. There's a video, you see him like going over, picking it up. Whatever. This is called a Nebuch Ganav. That's not it. Nobody steals like this. And he was caught. I think he was caught in here. So what am I going to gain from it? Garnished. Comes the Torah and says, oh, you Ganav, you stole. You got to make sure that the one you stole from is getting back what you stole from him. So the Ganav says, what? I spent it. I don't have it anymore. You don't have it. Pay it back on your investment. I have my investment. What do you think? Why was I stealing? Comes the Torah and says, you have no investment? Perfect. Let's work with you. We're going to sell you. And you're going to produce some work to your master. And that's how we're going to make money to pay back the person you stole. No jail garnished, and no insurance claims. We are going to make sure that the guy you stole from is getting his money back. That's number one. And this is what we are doing. And as the sages continue, who wants to buy a ganav? Am I going to bring in a ganav into my house just because somebody needs to pay back a stolen item that he stole? The Torah says there were specific families who were educators, special people who knew how to bring this person into rehabilitation, work with them, teach them, train them, and make sure that when he walks out of here, he's able to stand on his own 2 feet. A whole different treatment. So now that very same Ganav is in the master's house. And what happens? Torah says 6 years. Goes by a few verses. Verse 5. Imamo Yomara Eved. So this servant, which we call him by name, the original thief, says, אהבתי את אדוני, את אשתי, את בניי, לא הייתה חופשי. I love my master, I don't want to go out. You ever heard such a thing? Someone who is a slave shall not want to live free from his enslavement. What kind of person wants to stay a slave? Slave mentality, even those who have slave mentality don't want to be slaves. But here we talk, and nevertheless he said, I don't want to go. You don't want to go? Why would you not want to go? And there's a whole process. You don't want to go. No such a thing. You shouldn't stay a slave. We make sure that he understands that he doesn't belong as a slave. The drill is here by the doorpost, and as the Torah says, that we make sure that he knows that this is not a place you belong. You should have known that you can't be a slave. Why would someone want to be a slave? No. Let me tell you what the Gemara says about a slave, and see how wonderful it is to be a slave. The Gemara, this is in volume Kiddushin, page 22, discusses this very portion of the slave. And the Torah says that this very same Parsha is being later repeated, like I mentioned last week, and we mentioned constantly in the book of Dvarim. Those who were here last week, we spoke Zachor, Shamor, and so on. If you look in the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, the same story is mentioned, but the Torah adds 3 words which gives us an understanding of why the slave doesn't want to go out. Those who want to follow, turn to page 1018 or 1019 in the English, verse 15 and 16. V'zacharta ki eved hayita be'eretz Mitzrayim. The Torah always tells us, I want you to remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. Vayivdecha Hashem Elokecha, and God has redeemed you. Ve'aya ki yomar elecha, verse 16, lo yitze mi'imach, I will not leave you. Ki ha'efcha ve'et beitecha, for he loves you and your household. Ki tov lo imach, for it is good for him with you. What does tov lo imach mean? Why would it be good for him with you? What the Talmud says? That there is an obligation for any master who owns a slave to make sure ki tov lo imach. That's a part of the Torah obligation. You have to make sure that the slave is enjoying life as good as you are. And now you're going to hear some words. Tanu Rabbanan, says the Talmud in Tractate Kiddushin, ki tov lo imach, regarding the Jewish servant who wishes to become the Torah says, ki tov lo imach, since it is being good for him with you. Ma ze imach? What does the word imach mean? With you. Imach b'ma'achal. Imach b'mishteh. With you in food and with you with drink. שלא תהא אתה אוכל פת נקייה והוא אוכל פת קיבר. אתה שותה יין ישן והוא שותה יין חדש. אתה יושן על גבי מוחים והוא יושן על גבי התבן. Absolutely not. You understand that? Let me tell you in English. So, I own a slave. My wife goes to the bakery, brings them a fresh loaf of bread. She schmeckt am chaya, right? The best piece of bread. Happens to be that I have at home from 2 days ago, which was also good then, but now it's not a Nebuch bread. 2 days passed. And I have over here the slave of mine that I bought because he was a ganav sitting somewhere in the edges of the house. And the bread arrives to the house. That's enough for one person. Who is getting it? You know what the Torah says? Ki tov lo imach, for him has to be good with you, means to say that he has to be good before you. So that is going to get the fresh roll, and you're going to eat the Nebuch 2-day, 3-day old roll. And when you buy a bottle of wine and it's new wine, and then there's an ancient bottle on on the shelf, both gonna drink. Kitov lo imach. That slave, that servant, he's gonna get the old bottle of wine, which is tastier and more winey than the new, and you're gonna get the Nebuch wine, Bartenura wine. I'm sorry, whatever it is. And same thing when it comes to pillows. You got a pillow, and there's one pillow in the house, and I would like to sleep on my pillow. I'm the owner. It's my house. No, he's getting the pillow. You go on the floor. Who would buy a slave? You know where the Talmud ends up. Mikan amru. This is what our sages always say. Kol hakoneh eved ivri kekoneh adon leatzmo. Anyone who buys a Jewish servant is virtually bought a master for himself. You didn't buy a slave. You bought yourself a master. Matana she'ochelet, exactly. You got a gift, a Nebuch gift. Not only ochelet, not only does it eat, you have to look out for him to have better than you have for yourself. This is the halacha which the Talmud uses regarding a slave.
But that's only if you buy a Jewish slave, not if you buy a Goyish slave.
No, it's
I'm talking about this parsha. Now we're dealing with the Jewish slave.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a lot of flaws in the respect that we have to give a non-Jewish slave, but I don't want to cover all the laws. I'm sure you don't want to stay all night and cover all the laws with me. Right?
I'm disappointed.
Huh?
Arnold wants to stay all night, as long as you give him a good pillow.
Not only that, even more so. Where is there? There's a Tosfot over here. Tosfot says, what is koneh adon leatzmo? Tosfot says something very interesting. That why is he your master? Imach, it should be like you. So he says no. It's not. Tov lo imach means for him it should be good with you. For him for sure has to be good. With you, you figure out how to make it good for both of you. But if not, he deserves to be the good. What kind of works are you allowed to work with a slave? So we have in the Torah a number of times, lo tirbet, lo tirded, lo beparech, lo ta'avod bo avodat aved. Meaning, you can't give him jobs which are not respectful. So imagine, you bought yourself a slave. And then I'm an old person, and I can't bend down to untie my shoes and to clean my shoes. So I'm standing by the window and I'm looking out for somebody to come help me. And I see somebody walking by. I think, oh, David, come inside. What do you need? I need you to help me untie my shoes and maybe to help me brush them. Takes a look and he says, very there, tzaddik, who is this guy there? He said, that's my slave. What is he doing? He's smoking a nargila. What do you call it? A hookah. A hookah. So I don't understand. You have a servant in your house. You're calling him your servant and he doesn't deny it. So he's not your son or your son-in-law that don't help you, right? So he is the right guy to do those jobs. And why is he sitting with his hookah and you never standing by the window calling me a stranger to take care of it? What do you have to answer? He's my slave, but this type of jobs I can't give him. What can you give him? Oh, if I have to pick up something from the post office, they left me a pink note to go pick up something, I can tell him, listen, you go do it. And it's going to have to listen to me. But you can't ever do the so-called disgraceful or the disrespectful kind of jobs. This is all halachot, which has to do with this concept. A koine eved, you buy yourself a servant, you buy yourself a master. Now, does that make sense?
of the Talmud wants everybody to be gunners.
What? Exactly. You're encouraging people to be gunners, it says. I had once a guy, a guy who was homeless, and he used to come. He came to classes, the old tourist center, and I let him in. He's a nice guy. Homeless. Not there's a lot of nice homeless people. Unfortunately, not everyone is the scary monsters they try to create them for us. And we got to be careful because we don't know who is who. But there are some nice homeless. And he came in once, he asked me permission, I let him come, and we became I used to ask him questions about the homeless lifestyle and what they do and how do you survive. And he was nice. And then suddenly the guy disappeared. He didn't show up for a couple of months. Can't say honestly I missed him, but I was wondering what happened to him. And after a while, he's again with his backpack, he's coming up. Let's call him Joe. I said, Joe, who were you all this time? He wasn't a Jewish guy. I said, who were you? He said, I was in jail. He said, what happened? Nothing. I was getting bored to take the bus or wait for the bus. So I brought into the restaurant something. I started behaving chaotically, and they arrested me. Thank God. So I had a few months in jail. So now I'm good. That wasn't worse. I told you this story once, let's remember. Some of you probably remember it. What's the word? The word over here is, what's the idea? What's the message? What the Torah is telling us here, yes, the very fact that he's going to have to do for me from the post office, so you have a choice. You can either do it or not do it. That slave does not have a choice. There's an area in his life that he has no choice. He has to do what is being told and being asked. So that defines him as a slave. That aspect in his life where he's losing his freedom and he's subjected to someone else's order makes him into a slave. So he's a slave. At the very same time, we have to teach him and teach ourselves that ultimately we can't have slaves because we are already enslaved to someone. As the Talmud says, and that's the whole idea of the drilling body here, is to tell him, Allah, we all heard on Sinai that we are servants to God. So you can't stay a servant forever. But by the way, even in Jewish law, signing a contract has a limit for how many years you can sign a contract to. I don't know, it's a secular law. And it's based on this principle that you can't sell yourself as a slave to someone. You have to give yourself an opportunity to continue and to reflect on other options. So this is a seemingly logical mitzvah, but it's not really logical. Meaning there is aspects to this mitzvah that the only way to understand it is based on that what we said before. Ve'ele Mishpatim. These also are the laws, meaning that they are also from Sinai. And when God considers an idea of slavery in order to return someone else's money, he looks on things which in the normal world we wouldn't look at. Who would think such a thing? You have to respect him, you have to buy him that which is more better than yours. This is Sinai. Let me give you another example. Continuing to this Parsha. Everybody knows this mitzvah called Hashavat Aveidah. You heard about the Hashavat Aveidah? Hashavat Aveidah means, in Hebrew, returning someone's lost item. Right? Just a second. No, before that, I'm sorry. Let's turn to page 432, verse 3. This is also repeated in Chumash Dvarim. You will see some very interesting differences. What does verse chapter 23 discuss? Number 1, verse 3. Ki tifga shor ovecha oyivcha o chamorot to'eh. If you encounter an ox of your enemy or his donkey wandering. What does wandering mean?
Moving around.
Loose.
Loose. You walk on your way to shul 7 o'clock in the morning. I make my way from my house to this synagogue. And along the way, I see someone's donkey. Okay? I saw a donkey. The word enemy, let's leave on the side a moment. Hopefully we can have a chance to discuss it tonight too. What can I do as an enemy? Who is allowed to have enemies? Separate discussion. We'll come to it. But you are encountering a donkey. Okay? Scenario is clear. I'm walking from my house. It takes me about 25 minutes to walk. I'm walking up North Ave. The streets are empty. And lo and behold, I see a donkey. I have 2 choices. I can ignore it. I don't want to see donkeys. I'm going to shul. Walk across the street. Chapter 22 in Dvarim, page 1049. Of your brother, or a sheep or goat cast off, and hide yourself from them, meaning pretend you didn't see them. This is not an enemy, this is any brother. Okay? I guess from Mishpatim till now, the enemy became a brother. You shall surely return them to your brother. What happens? If your brother is not near you and you do not know him, meaning somebody lost it, but you don't know who lost it. Rabbi say, you see what's going on here? You gather him inside your house. I'm coming home 8 o'clock, back after Shacharit with a donkey. And my wife says, Rabbi Farkash, what's this? Did you go to the pet store? What's Mishugas? What are you schlepping a donkey at home? Rabbi Farkash, I saw a donkey on the street. I don't know who it is. And we're going to have to now become the hospitality for this donkey. The donkey got a new home. Some of my kids will be happy. Some of them are going to be too happy. But I know that from now, at this moment, life has changed in the Farkash family. There is a donkey in our yard or in the house, whatever it takes. I wouldn't know what to do with him first. I'm going to have to call leaves. וכן תעשה לחמורו, וכן תעשה לשמלתו, וכן תעשה לכל אבידת אחיך אשר תאבד ממנו ומצאת, לא תוכל להתעלם. You take it in, and you know what the Torah says? That this donkey, v'ayayimcha, it has to be with you. You know what the Talmud tells us on the word v'ayayimcha? I don't want to spend time in reading you passages of Talmud. But if you ask me the address, I will tell you where it is and you can look it up. You know what it means it should be with you? You can ignore it. You got to provide it life. What does that mean? Food.
Exercise.
Food. Walk in. Give him life. You don't know how long. Now, how am I going to give him life? I worked at my budget in the beginning of the year, and I know exactly what I'm... Pet food for a donkey, for a sheep, and I don't have grass. I have to go to the pet store and buy food. You know, there's the section, the animal food section in Fred Meyer. I never visited. I'm going to have to start visiting that section too. It costs money. Who is going to pay it? Who is going to pay it? You know what the Talmud says? You're going to look for people who need to work with a donkey. They need to schlep stuff. And they're going to have to pay you. So with that money, you're going to end up buying food for the donkey. And now you're going to be able to care for him. Until when? Until you're going to see a sign in the Times saying that lost donkey. That's what you are going to have to do. You might try to have a job. When I go back to my office, I have other things on my mind than running around after a donkey. No, I'm going to have to put advertisement all over the street. All children are welcome. For $3, you can take a donkey ride around the neighborhood. Living at the Farkash's house from 5 to 7 every evening, you can ride a donkey. Rabbi, what happened to you? Nothing. I need money to feed the donkey. The only way to do it is if I give rides for kids, and they're going to go and have birthday parties with a donkey, and I'm going to be able not to make a living for myself. It's not enough to support me, but enough to support the donkey's need. It has to be with you, the Torah says. And the Talmud actually tells a story. There was a great sage, Chadida ben Dosa, that he's Nebuch one morning. I say Nebuch because it ends up being Nebuch. He walked out and somebody forgot 2 chickens in front of his house. And on his way to shul, he had to take them in. And you know when you take chickens to your house? Gelegt Eier. They laid eggs. And from the eggs became little chicks, whiter chicken. And then his whole house, the whole backyard, his whole neighborhood is full of chickens. And they're all screaming at him, "What are you doing, Rabbi?" He sold the chickens, instead he bought goats. And the goats somehow, he tried to do something. He couldn't just get rid of them. Until one day, the Talmud says, somebody walked by and he says, "Rabbi, I remember one time I left some 2 chickens. And you maybe had a chance to see those chickens. Chickens, come let me show you chickens." And he shows him a pan full of goats. And he says, "Reb, this is all yours." And who took care of them? Rab Chanina ben Doisa, this great sage. Why? Because the Torah says, in our week's Parsha, that when you meet an ox or a donkey, you have to return it. So returning a lost item is sensible? Is it logical? Or is it Sinai? If it's only logic, as long as I didn't pick it up, as long as I can pretend I didn't see it, as long as I have any reason to get rid of it, I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to go near it. But if you follow Torah, there's a whole new system. It's almost a decree, not a logical mitzvah. For me, to take care of a donkey like this and not to mix meat with milk is the same idea. I don't understand that, and I don't understand it either. It doesn't make more sense to me. In the superficial learning and reading of the verses, without the Talmudic instructions and traditional insights, then you say, okay, meat and milk, which by the way also in this Parsha, in the end of the Parsha. Meat and milk, okay, this really doesn't make sense. Kosher meat, I'm not talking non-kosher meat. Kosher meat with kosher milk. And as long as I eat them separately, it's okay. The moment they get cooked together, okus pokus, they became treif. It doesn't make any sense. From us, why? No. The Rebbe don't want, let it be. But to return a lost item, that's logic. Right? It's ethical. It's ethical. It's ethical. You show me a book of ethics who tells you to treat a lost item with a few little rules that I just shared with you. I bet you wouldn't find it. And the reason is because in Judaism, even returning a lost item is not just ethical. It is orders from Sinai with divine inspiration and meaning. And we should all live long enough to be able to learn and understand the meanings and the insights behind them and why is it so necessary. But I'm going to give you a third example, then hopefully we can wrap it up together. It's a long Parsha, by the way. This is the Parsha, Mishpatim. The next verse, following verse 4. What does verse 5 say? Ki tireh chamor sonacha. If you see the donkey of someone you hate, you still have to figure out why should somebody hate someone. No, it's important. See, Torah mentions that as a given, it's okay, you have an enemy, you hate someone. I thought it's forbidden to hate according to Torah law, but okay, we will come to it, God willing. Ki tireh chamor sonacha. If you see the donkey of someone you hate, rovetz tachat masa'o, page 434. Rovetz tachem asao is crouching under his burden. Ah, crouching. He lies, he doesn't move. You ever saw a donkey not moving? So, he's not moving. Schmeiße, Dio! He doesn't go. Good. He's not moving. Why is not moving? He's overloaded. Oh, this is my enemy. Let him get stuck there. Let him be stuck on the I-90 with his donkey, with his flat tire. He's not going anywhere. And says, Azov Tazov Imo. I command you, you should help him repeatedly. What does repeatedly mean? Again, you put it on, it falls off. Try again, it falls off. Azov Tazov Imo. Let's see how these verses being reviewed by Moses in the book of Deuteronomy. I always love to go back to Deuteronomy because then you see the contact, then you see the extra information which was not necessarily mentioned in the original. Let's go back to Deuteronomy, again on chapter 22. Oh. Verse here.
What page?
Page 1050, verse 4. Or 1051 in the English, verse 4. Lo tireh et chamor achicha. You shall not see the donkey of your brother, or shoro, or his ox, noflim baderech, falling on the road, veitalamta mehem, and hide yourself from them. Don't do that. Rather, hakem takim imo. You shall surely stand them up with him. Interesting enough, when you look on this parsha, there is actually two different commandments. What is that?
No, I'm saying in this Chumash, I don't like the translations.
Okay, listen, English is English, garnished often. I give you my blessing. You should live a long life, learn Hebrew, understand Hebrew, and read it all in Hebrew. You live so long that you should even forget English.
Amen.
No, we've got the other Chumash.
Oh,
Yeah, but
that's
this
special.
is a King's English.
No, this.
Okay, let's go on. So you have these. There is. I want to discuss it, and I don't want to waste your time. There is two major differences between us. We're reading it in our reading of this Parsha Mishpatim, in the way we are reading it now in Dvarim, in the Deuteronomy. First of all, in the Deuteronomy, it doesn't call him your enemy. It calls him your brother, Achicha. In our week's Parsha, we are still enemies. Number one. Number two, in Mishpatim, we just read, what does it say? Azov ta'azov imo, you shall help repeatedly with him. Up with him. What's the difference? So Rashi tells us that in this week's Parsha where it talks about Azov ta'azov, you should surely help him. It talks about the following scenario. Lifrok hamasa. Like I mentioned before, you have a donkey. And it causes him stress. And that's why he's not moving. Comes the Torah, you should know that you have to, what do you call it? Unload it. This is Parshat Mishpatim. Now that you unloaded the peckle, okay, but the guy has to continue traveling. So organize it, give him a chance, and then comes this week, the Parsha in Dvarim and says what? Hakem takimimo. Now that you unloaded it, you have another mitzvah to help him to stand the donkey up and reload it. Okay, talking. Says Rashi, Hakem takim zu te'ina. Te'ina, says Rashi, can simply also be that the load had fallen off the back of the donkey. It's fallen off. It's fallen off. You have a mitzvah to help the donkey and the loading donkey, the honor to reload it back on the donkey's back. Okay. Now comes the Talmud, the Baba Metzia, and discusses the following scenario. What happens, you walk on the street, and you have two donkeys in front of you, right?
Right.
Two donkeys. Here you have a donkey that he, what do you said, crunched under his load, and right next to them is another donkey that the back has to be unloaded. Has to be loaded on it. And the question is, which one you should take care on first? Remove the load, or what is the other word? Reload. Says the Gemara. The Gemara comes out in Baba Metzia, page 33. The Gemara says, since the Gemara that when the donkey is never lying with pain, of not able to schlep, it involves the issue of tsar balei chaim. You have to be careful not to stress our animals, and therefore, two donkeys in front of you. First, take the peckle of the first donkey who can't carry it, and then get yourself busy with reloading the next donkey. Logically, what would be the result of such a rule? That anytime you bump into these two scenarios, which they call in Hebrew mitzvah prika neged mitzvah te'ina, the mitzvah of unloading versus the mitzvah of reloading, what should be taken care of first?
Unloading.
The unloading.
Sure.
Right? Sure. Comes the Gemara and says, nay, not always. There's an exception. There's an exception to that law. What is the exception? Sometimes the reload will take place before the unload. What is the case? As the Gemara, or every frog, ושונא לטעון, mitzvah basoneh. The two people which are dealing with these donkeys, so the one who needs the reload is happening to be your enemy. The one who needs the unload happens to be your friend. In such a case, your mitzvah is to first go and help the donkey of your enemy. First, take care of the reloading, because here it involves not only to deal with the mitzvah of caring for another person, but it also involves in another aspect. And this is improving yourself to, you have a problem. You have an issue with that person. You hate him. And we never dealt with that problem. So the Torah wants you to work on the problem. And how you're going to work on it, and then you see these two scenarios, run over towards him, and you're going to take care of him first. So, interesting discussion in Tosfot, which in the commentary in the Talmud, and it says, what does it mean, your enemy? Since when is it kosher to have an enemy? Since when does somebody have an enemy? Like, and you give it such perfect recognition, and you deal with that as if it's a okay circumstance. What are we with enemies? Tosfot says a very unusual insight. It's more like a psychological insight into a simple understanding of a verse. You know what Tosfot says? Listen to that. We're dealing with two people. Now, what are we trying to explain now? I'm trying to explain how does one end up having an enemy. Okay? Listen to what Tosfot says. We have two people. Let's call one Reuven and the second one Shimon. Warned them, taught them, he explained them, and he still went, against what he heard, and in a very mean way desecrated God's law. Okay? Reuven sometimes will have the permission to hate that person, not the person himself, as Rabbi Tanya explains, but to hate the way the person behaved. Let's call it hate is actions. Okay, it's practical behavior. It doesn't mean that you can't have a relationship with a person. But there is a mitzvah now, so to speak, a mitzvah. There is a concept that you hate him. Okay. No. Now what happens now? Listen to what Tosfos says. Reuven is hating Shimon. Why? Because Shimon transgressed and behaves very disrespectfully to God. So he hates him. As a result of Reuven's hatred to Shimon, Shimon hates him back. There is what King Solomon writes, Kamaim apanim lapanim, ken lev ahadam laadam. Just like water reflects a person's face, so too the other person's heart reflects your heart. So if I have hatred in my heart towards someone, that immediately reflects with a response of hatred from him to me. As a result of that, what happens next? First I hated him, because I had to. As a result, what happened? He hated me. Now, what's the return? I'm hating him again, because now I'm reflecting to his hatred. That second hatred is not a kosher hatred. Right? The second hatred, which is responding to the hatred which the person, which Shimon has towards you, is just a response, a reflection to what he feels towards you, nothing to do with what he did previously. That is the type of hatred which the Torah says is strafe and forbidden. You're not supposed to hate someone just because he hates you. That is the enemy that we are referring to. This is Sonacha. This is the only type of hatred that the Talmud can figure out. You hear this twist, a Talmudic twist to figure out how can a Jew have somebody that he hates. It's not kosher, but this is the Sonacha. It's a person that you hate. You weren't supposed to hate them personally. You can't take it personally, the fact that he transgresses God's will. It's not your business. But I couldn't control myself. I can stand the way he behaves against God. Okay. But the second hatred is for sure not kosher. Just because he hates you, so you respond to it. That you have an obligation that when you travel and you see him and you have two donkeys in front of you, and usually the mitzvah would be to do what? To unload the one who is dealing with a heavy load. Here, in order to subtract, to farkash, to remove your personal hatred of your evil inclination, you're going to get yourself busy with him first. Imagine this scenario. You have always, when you learn, I'm sure it's in the secular world as well, but in Talmudic study, you always have to somehow figure that you have to make, you have to create this type of scenario. It should mean something practical to you. You got to walk into the shoes of the discussion. So I'm thinking to myself, talking about donkeys, taxi drivers, the same idea, okay? So you have two taxi drivers. You have also in Israel the taxis, maybe in America too, but who takes a taxi in Seattle? We all have cars. But you have taxis. So a guy comes in, he's waiting for a customer. Sometimes he can wait 2 hours. And then this is driver number 8. Standing there with his taxi, waiting. Just before the 2 hours gone by, the guy walks in with his taxi. He always does it. These guys are mamzer. He always does it. He comes in, and just as I'm about to collapse after waiting you here, the guy arrives with his taxi. And lo and behold, a customer comes by. Hello, taxi Ashdod? Sure, come in. The second guy says, sure, I have place. The customer doesn't know anything. He walks in. You can imagine how the first taxi driver curses him out. Any klal of the world. Okay, he's so upset. He hates him full-heartedly. No, but the Rebbe helps, doesn't go by 10 minutes, and he gets a customer, Baruch Hashem. And now he's driving his taxi. Taxi driver number 1, driving with passenger number 2. and he sees from far somebody's on the roadside. Oh, must be something happened to his car. Comes a little closer. Oops, Baruch Hashem. It looks like this is the guy. The guy who took away my customer, got a flat tire, Givaldi. And he drives by him, hello. Goes by another few meters, and he remembers, what did I learn in this week's Parsha? When you see your enemy's taxi collapsing, right? You have to go and bend yourself and go over, make a sharp U-turn, and go over to the friend and say, listen, I need to help you. What do you need? This is the same taxi driver. No, what happens later? Let's move forward. I helped him. I fixed his taxi. He continues his drive. And what is our end of conversation? The guy tells me, I see you're not such a bad guy. I feel sorry what I did for you. And I say, okay, I understand. You probably needed the money. Okay, on the way back, let's stop somewhere in a coffee shop. Let's have some l'chaim. They see, they become friends. This is the Torah is leading. This is the old directions of Parshas Mishpatim. And my dear friends, you can go here tonight and go to mitzvah by mitzvah by mitzvah from this unbelievable Parsha, which is all discussions in all the courthouses, is what we're dealing over here of Parshas Mishpatim. All the laws between man and how to behave and what to do. But when you study it with its tradition, with its old tradition, you see how much in every mitzvah, in the most humane mitzvah, in the most ethical, so-called simple understanding that as people, I would say, I don't need Torah for it. I don't need Torah for it. There's an expression in the Talmud that if the Torah wouldn't have been given, we would have learned majesty from a cat. You ever saw a cat digging up the sand? It doesn't just, expose itself everywhere. And other thing we would learn from other animals. But then God made a Torah. Who says? Maybe Taka. Let's Taka stick to the cats. Why do we need the Torah? This is just a small few samples, like I said, we were sampling tonight, of how you see that even in the most simple, logical mitzvahs, there is a lot of what we call divine inspiration, godly insight, which makes the logic much more wonderful, gives much more meaningful, and mainly teaches us that even so-called ethics have to be driven by a divine order. If it's not divine, so today it's ethical to behave like this, and tomorrow, like the Rebbe used to say, not only one time, I heard it from the Rebbe a number of times, and he said that as far as ethical behavior, that was the what do you call it? Matzah miflakti. This was like the presentation. That's who we are. They took care of cats, and they took care of animals, and all kinds of beautiful so-called ethical institutions and enactments to improve ethical life. It became the big ethical in the same, other than to behave the way you behave. This is when ethics is detached from godliness. So then, this makes sense to me today. Tomorrow I have a crazy philosophical idea, and I think that's something someone else may have to get rid of. God forbid. But if it's driven by a divine message, then it's eternity, then it's only good. And this is what Mishpatim is. So, my friends, enjoy the rest of the night and Parsha. Always a pleasure. Hope you learned something tonight. We will continue. You're very welcome.
If that taxi